Okay, so let's unpack this. Have you ever just felt overwhelmed? Like you're trying your absolute best, maybe in your career, in your relationships, just trying to navigate the sheer chaos of daily life, but it feels like you're constantly running into walls.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the never-ending demands from work, the complicated dynamics with your family, the baffling behavior of your friends, or even just the simple frustration of things not going your way, like that ridiculous line at the coffee shop when you're already late. You know that feeling, right? That sense of powerlessness.
Yeah, it's incredibly common. We dedicate so much mental and emotional energy to things completely outside of our control. Specifically, trying to manage or change other people or wishing external circumstances were different. It's not only inefficient, it's utterly draining.
It really is. And that feeling, that drain, is exactly what we're diving into today. We're going deep into a concept that's resonated with millions, a powerful idea from Mel Robbins' recent work, which she's calling the let them theory.
Right. And this isn't just about a catchy phrase.
Hmm.
We're going to pull directly from the core material, the research that underpins it, the real-life anecdotes that bring it to life, and the practical steps outlined for applying it. Our goal is to give you the absolute essential understanding of this theory, like a direct path through the information so you can see how it works and, crucially, how it can work for you.
Think of it as your personal shortcut to grasping something that could genuinely transform your life. Our mission is clear. We want to unpack what the let them theory actually is, explore the powerful reasons why it's so effective, and then step by step show you exactly how you can start implementing it in your own life. It boils down to becoming laser focused on the critical distinction between what you can control and, perhaps even more importantly, acknowledging and accepting what you absolutely cannot.
And what's particularly fascinating and maybe a little surprising is the core insight at the heart of this theory. It feels counterintuitive initially because it's not about gaining control over others, despite our natural inclination to try. It's about radical acceptance, truly letting others be who they are, make their own choices, and have their own feelings. And that acceptance, paradoxically, is the most direct route to reclaiming immense power and control over your own life. And it all starts with just two incredibly simple yet profound words.
Two words that, once you understand them and start applying them, can truly shift everything. Let's get into how this idea came to be. So before we fully immerse ourselves in the let them theory, it's helpful to understand the journey that led to its discovery. Many people are familiar with the author's earlier work, particularly the 5-second rule. That tool was born out of a period of intense personal struggle, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The author has been very open about the difficult time that served as the catalyst for the 5-second rule. She talks about being in a really dark place, facing overwhelming debt, navigating significant problems in her marriage, wrestling with debilitating anxiety and self-doubt. She describes feeling completely stuck, unable to even do basic things like getting out of bed in the living.
Yeah, and this wasn't just minor financial stress. She shared that they were like $800,000 in debt, their house had liens on it, and her husband's business was really struggling. The weight of it all sounds immense.
It was a desperate situation.
Yeah.
And in that specific moment of feeling paralyzed, she stumbled upon this incredibly simple but powerful mechanism, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown. The idea was to count backward, and when you hit 1, you physically force yourself to move, to take that small action your brain was resisting.
So the countdown was literally a trigger to interrupt the pattern of overthinking or hesitation and just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of bed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, pick up the phone and start networking for a job, even if you felt unqualified or scared. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, open the bills that had been piling up for months, like just forcing the action.
Exactly. It was about overriding that internal resistance, the excuses, the anxiety, the overwhelm, and the fear to take small, consistent steps forward. It wasn't a magic fix. She emphasizes that it was a difficult day-by-day process of digging themselves out of debt, addressing the marriage issues, updating her resume, and getting back into the job market when she felt like a failure, and working towards getting physically healthy. It was a real grind.
But the impact was undeniable, and not just for her. The 5-second rule became a global phenomenon, didn't it? People started using it in all sorts of contexts to change careers, achieve significant weight loss goals, overcome addiction, launch businesses, improve their overall health, and build better relationships. The source material even highlights its use in clinical settings for things like PTSD, OCD, and depression. And there are incredibly moving accounts of people using the countdown to stop themselves from attempting suicide and instead reaching out for help. Really powerful stuff.
The sheer breadth of its application revealed something crucial. The struggle with motivation, The difficulty in taking action when faced with internal resistance or external difficulty is a deeply universal human problem. The 5-second rule provided a tangible, actionable tool focused on internal change, helping people push past their own internal obstacles and take control of their own behavior.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the development of the let them theory. After seeing how the 5-second rule helped people take charge of their individual lives, the author had a significant realization based on research about what truly contributes to a happy, healthy life.
Yes. She discovered that research consistently points to relationships as the #1 factor determining our long-term health and happiness. It's not just romantic relationships, it's the quality of our connections with family, friends, colleagues, community. These relationships have a profound impact on our overall well-being.
And while the 5-second rule helps you manage your internal world and your actions, effectively dealing with other people with their own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors introduces a completely different layer of complexity.
Precisely. How do you navigate the inevitable frustrations, disagreements, expectations, and baffling actions of others without losing your peace of mind or giving away your power? This is the challenge that spurred the development of the let them theory. It's a tool designed specifically to address the complexities that arise when we interact with the external world of other people.
So it was a natural progression, really, moving from a tool for managing your internal self to a framework for navigating your interactions with others in a healthy way. And at the heart of this framework is that simple yet profound core equation: let them plus let me.
That equation really encapsulates the essence of the theory. It represents two distinct but interconnected actions. But to fully appreciate them, we first need to understand the fundamental problem they are designed to solve.
And the problem, as you touched on earlier, is the power we unknowingly surrender to other people.
It's the core issue. The source of our stress and unhappiness isn't usually the other person or what they're doing. It's the power you allow their actions, their thoughts, or their feelings to have over you. We do it constantly, often without even recognizing it as giving away our power.
Can you give us some examples of what that looks like in practice, maybe some common ones?
Oh, we see it everywhere. It's in the meticulous effort you put into trying to say exactly the right thing to keep everyone around you happy and satisfied. It's bending over backward for a partner, terrified of disappointing them. It's trying desperately to be friendly enough, cool enough, or funny enough at work so your colleagues will like you. Or constantly walking on eggshells, trying to keep the peace with family members just to avoid their judgment or criticism about your life choices.
So you're not just interacting with them, you're trying to manage their potential reaction, their opinion, their feelings. It sounds exhausting.
Precisely. You're allowing their internal state or external behavior to dictate your actions, your words, and ultimately your feelings. You are, piece by piece, giving away your personal power.
It feels like these actions are necessary, though, right? To be accepted, to be loved, to maintain relationships, or to prevent conflict. But the theory suggests this is actually where we get trapped.
It does. It's a trap built on the illusion of control over others. And the author's pivotal realization about this came, perhaps surprisingly, not in a moment of profound relationship crisis, but during a high school prom.
Ah, the prom that changed my life. It's such a relatable scenario because proms are inherently stressful events for parents. She mentions having navigated 4 previous proms with her daughters, so she thought her son Oakley's prom would be less complicated.
Naturally, it wasn't. Proms involve so many moving parts, coordinating outfits, dates, photos, and in their case, hosting the post-prom party for 20 teenagers. It's a logistical undertaking for sure.
So they're in the midst of getting ready, taking photos, and she's having this moment, as parents do, reflecting on how quickly time flies, how her kids are growing up, wanting to savor the moment.
And that sentimental reflection is abruptly broken by teenage directness. As Oakley and his date are about to head out, she grabs a beautiful corsage she'd carefully made for his date.
And Oakley's immediate response is a firm, "Mom, she doesn't want a corsage. Don't bring that."
Ouch.
Right. She's taken aback, maybe a little hurt, and tries to reason, "Well, I'll just bring it." And he snaps back, "Mom, please, I don't want you to bring it." You can feel the tension building.
Absolutely. You know that feeling, that immediate deflation mixed with a rush of wanting to fix it or make them see your perspective? She describes rolling her eyes at her other daughter, Kendall, looking for a sympathetic glance. And Kendall, trying to be helpful, offers to wear it, unintentionally revealing she'd already made her own corsage. Oh, the layers of awkwardness.
So awkward. And then, as if things weren't complicated enough, a sudden, unexpected rainstorm hits. Not in the forecast. 20 teenagers in formal wear, standing outside, no rain gear, no umbrellas. You'd think the weather would be the primary source of stress.
It definitely added to the chaos. But amidst the downpour, she overhears the kids discussing their dinner plans, or lack thereof. So what do you guys want to do for dinner?
And that's the trigger for the real parental panic. Oak, you guys don't have a reservation for dinner. Nope. The disbelief, the looking at her husband like, can you believe this? They don't have a reservation for dinner.
This is where her deeply ingrained instinct to control takes over. The idea that 20 teenagers would show up for prom without a pre-booked dinner reservation is unfathomable to her. Her daughters always had everything planned months in advance. This wasn't how it was supposed to go.
She describes this physical sensation, her body being 2 steps ahead, the urge to jump in and fix this perceived disaster feeling almost irrational. She wasn't alone. She observed other parents also swarming their kids, frantically trying to take control of a situation that was clearly unfolding outside of anyone's plan. She starts desperately searching her phone for restaurant availability for 20 people.
Finding nothing, she's yelling out to other parents, suggesting ordering pizzas. She's trying to control the uncontrollable, force a reservation into existence, stop the rain, make these teenagers conform to her idea of a proper prom dinner experience.
But then came the moment of surrender, the pivotal shift. Instead of continuing the frantic, futile effort to control the situation, she starts. She walks up to Oakley, manages a smile, and when he looks at her, maybe bracing for another lecture, she simply hands him some money.
Money for Amigos, the local small taco place. And she says with a smile, "Have an awesome prom."
And then she watches them go, running into the rain, splashing through puddles, getting mud on their fancy clothes, ruining new shoes.
And the realization washes over her. I didn't care.
Yeah.
In fact, it was kind of cute.
Wow. That specific, relatable anecdote perfectly illustrates the core of the theory. In that moment, by letting go of the need to manage her son's prom experience, letting them choose their own dinner, letting them get wet and muddy, she wasn't just letting them be, she was freeing herself. She stopped fighting against the reality of the situation and the reality of her son's choices, and in that release, she found a profound sense of freedom and peace.
It sounds deceptively simple, doesn't it? Just letting something happen. But it goes against a very deeply ingrained human instinct.
It really does, and this is where the psychological insights supporting the theory are crucial. One of the fundamental laws of human nature, backed by research, is our hardwired need for control.
Absolutely. It's a basic survival instinct. From an evolutionary perspective, having control over your environment and circumstances meant safety and predictability. Our brains are wired to seek control because it equates to security.
But here's the paradox, and psychologists who've studied anxiety and stress confirm this. The more you try to control things you cannot control, like what other people say, think, feel, or do, or external events like the weather or traffic, the more anxious and stressed you become. You are literally fighting against reality, a battle you can never win.
It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips away. You're expending immense energy with nothing to show for it except increased frustration and anxiety. The author found, through her own experience, and this theory confirms, that by consciously shifting your energy away from trying to control the uncontrollable and instead pouring it into what you can control yourself, your own actions, your own responses, you actually gain more effective control over your own life and well-being. It's a powerful pivot.
Yeah, it stopped making other people the problem and put the focus back on where the actual power lies.
Okay, so let's break down the two sides of this core equation. Let them and let me. Let them is the starting point. What does that really mean in practice?
Okay, so let them is the act of acceptance. It initiates the process of acknowledging and accepting the reality that you cannot change other people. You are consciously choosing to give them the space and autonomy to be who they are, to make their own decisions, to have their own opinions, and to feel their own emotions.
It sounds like it could be misunderstood, though, like you're just being passive or maybe even feeling superior, like you're above whatever they're doing. That's an absolutely crucial point to clarify, and the source material is clear on this. It is explicitly not about being passive or feeling superior. It's about finding balance and reclaiming your position. Think about it using that seesaw analogy. When you allow someone else's actions, opinions, or emotional state to weigh you down, maybe they said something critical that makes you question yourself, or their behavior makes you angry or hurt, you are essentially giving them power over your emotional state and your reactions. You're low on the seesaw, being pulled down by their weight.
Right, you're letting their stuff dictate how you feel and what you do.
Exactly. Saying let them is the act of pushing off the ground on your side of the seesaw. You are consciously deciding not to be pulled down by their weight. You free yourself from that unproductive struggle, you rise up, and the power dynamic shifts back to balance, where neither person's weight is unfairly pulling the other down. It's about recognizing their right to their own life and giving them the space and the grace to live their lives. It's honoring their autonomy, even when their choices are difficult for you.
So let them is the active process of releasing that unproductive struggle to change or manage others. It's acceptance.
Precisely. It's stepping back from trying to control their side of the street, but that acceptance is only the first half. The second, equally vital step is let me.
And this is where, once you've created that mental and emotional space by accepting what you can't control in others, you turn the focus back entirely onto yourself. The author has another really insightful anecdote about this related to friendship.
Yes, it's a common scenario that highlights how quickly we can internalize others' actions and make them about us. She describes scrolling through social media one weekend and seeing photos of a group of her girlfriends having a wonderful trip together, a weekend getaway she wasn't invited on. Her immediate reaction was a deep sigh, that familiar feeling of exclusion and a spiral of questioning. What did I do wrong? Are they mad at me? Why wasn't I included?
Oh, that feels so relatable. That immediate jump to self-blame or assuming the worst.
Exactly. That spiral of trying to figure out why they didn't include her. Her husband walked in, saw her expression, and asked what was wrong. When she explained, he offered a simple, observational truth. It's not like you're close friends with him anymore, Mel.
Ouch. Direct, but likely true in that moment.
It was true, but it didn't immediately stop the initial hurt or the impulse to try and fix whatever she thought was wrong. And this is where she had a key realization about her own default pattern. She recognized that she was a natural fixer. When she perceived a problem, whether it was debt, marriage issues, or a strained friendship, her instinct was to jump in and try to manage the situation, often trying to manage other people's feelings or potential reactions. She did this because she feared things would fall apart or that she would be judged or blamed if she didn't intervene.
So in this friendship situation, her attempt to fix it, to figure out what she'd done wrong and make things okay again, wasn't really about them or the friendship itself. It was about trying to control her own discomfort and fear of rejection before she even had to fully feel those difficult emotions.
That's the critical insight. She realized her friends hadn't actually done anything to her in a malicious sense. They were simply living their lives, making plans that didn't include her for whatever reasons. They were allowed to go on a trip together. Her reaction, the hurt, the spiral of self-doubt, the attempt to fix, was what she created in response. She was hurting herself with her interpretation and reaction.
That's incredibly powerful, realizing you are the source of your own pain in that situation. By saying, let them, letting her friends go on their trip without her, accepting that reality without attaching a negative story to it, she created essential mental space.
Yes, space to step back, breathe, and look honestly at her role in the dynamic. And that's where the let me came in. When she looked in the mirror, she saw the truth her husband pointed out. She hadn't been prioritizing those friendships. She'd been incredibly busy, focused on her work, and hadn't been reaching out or initiating plans herself. She wasn't necessarily excluded because they were mad. She likely wasn't thought of because she hadn't been actively making an effort either.
So Let Me became a conscious list of actions focused entirely on herself and her own responsibility for her social connections.
Exactly. The focus shifted completely from trying to figure out why they didn't include her to what she needed to do for herself. The Let Me list included things like, let me stop expecting inclusion. Let me take responsibility for my social life. Let me figure out deeper issues within myself about why this bothered me so much. Let me be more proactive. Let me invite people. Let me throw a party. Let me develop healthier work boundaries so I have more free time. Let me prioritize my social life.
It even led to her realizing that she genuinely missed some of these women and wanted to reconnect, not out of obligation or a transactional hope for future invites, but because she valued the connections and realized she had allowed work to consume too much of her life. Makes sense.
This is the profound power of let me. Once you stop wasting energy trying to control, change, or interpret the actions of others, let them, you free up an enormous amount of energy and mental space. You can then consciously redirect that energy to focus on what you can control, your own thoughts, your own feelings, and how you process them, and most importantly, your own actions. Let me control. It's a fundamental shift from being externally driven and reactive to being internally empowered and proactive.
This shift sounds incredibly useful for managing the constant barrage of daily stress we all experience, like just getting through the day sometimes.
Oh, it's revolutionary for stress management. Think about it. A huge portion of our daily stress comes from external triggers. The annoying person cutting you off in traffic, the incredibly slow person in line ahead of you, the coworker who chews loudly, or the person coughing nonstop on your flight. These things happen constantly, and they can instantly flip a switch in your brain, hijacking your mood and your actions.
Your body's stress response is almost automatic, isn't it? You feel that flush of annoyance, frustration, or even anger before you fully processed what's happening. Emotions are essentially these rapid chemical bursts in the brain and body.
That's right. Research suggests the initial chemical burst of emotion lasts about 6 seconds. If you simply observe it without reacting to it, it will often dissipate within about 90 seconds. But if you latch onto it, if you start thinking about it, dwelling on it, reacting to the emotion, you amplify it and prolong the experience. And factors like being tired, hungry, or already stressed can make these reactions even more intense.
So you can't stop the external trigger, and you can't stop that initial automatic emotional response.
No, those first 6 seconds are often automatic. You can't control the traffic jam, the slow person, or the cough. But you absolutely can control what happens after that initial response. This is where let them functions like an on-off switch for stress.
How do you use it in that moment? Like right when it happens?
The instant you feel that stress response triggered, you see the traffic jam, the person starts coughing loudly next to you. You consciously say, internally or even quietly, let them. This simple phrase acts as a signal to your brain, specifically the amygdala, which is the part responsible for detecting threats and triggering the stress response. You are telling your amygdala and yourself that this external thing is not a threat that requires your stress or energy. You are detaching yourself from the immediate negative emotion and the unproductive urge to control the uncontrollable situation.
And then immediately follow it with let me and a conscious breath.
Exactly. Let me and breathe. Connecting it to your breath is key. Dr. Deddy's research highlights that deep, intentional breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, which is a major nerve pathway that sends a calming signal directly to your brain, helping to regulate your nervous system.
So let them stops the spiral of focusing on the external, uncontrollable trigger, and let me and breathe pulls you back into your body, grounding you and activating your internal calming system, almost like a mini reset.
Precisely. The fundamental truth here is that focusing your energy on what you cannot control is the source of immense stress and leaves you feeling powerless. Conversely, consciously choosing to focus your energy on what you can control, your breath, your thoughts, your reactions, your own actions, is the pathway to reclaiming your power and reducing stress. Think about that coughing passenger again. You cannot control his cough, full stop. But you can control your response.
Right. I can accept that he's coughing, use let me and breathe, and maybe shift my focus to something else. Or, if I'm genuinely worried about my health, my let me action could be to calmly ask to change seats or put on a mask. My choice.
Exactly. Your health is your responsibility and within your control to protect, not his. When you get stressed out by someone else's behavior, you are essentially surrendering your power, your peace of mind to something outside of you, something that often doesn't truly matter in the grand scheme or that you can't change anyway. And allowing that external trigger to steal your peace in one area can easily spill over and negatively impact other parts of your life.
It really highlights that you have a choice in what stresses you out and how long you let it affect you. It's not just automatic.
It absolutely does. And this framework becomes incredibly potent when applied to situations where we often feel most powerless, our work and careers.
Ah, yes. That feeling of being stuck in a job you dislike or feeling overlooked for a promotion you believe you deserve. It can feel profoundly unfair, like your career trajectory is in someone else's hands.
And it can absolutely be unfair. You might be doing excellent work, you might deserve that promotion, and you have every right to feel angry and frustrated about the situation. But the fundamental truth that the theory brings into sharp focus is this. You are never truly stuck in any situation you don't choose to be in. You always possess the ultimate power to leave a job, to end a relationship, to change your circumstances.
But in that moment of feeling wronged or powerless, it doesn't feel like you have that choice. It feels like the boss holds all the cards.
They might hold the cards for that specific job, for that specific promotion, but they do not hold the cards for your entire career. The theory offers a path to reclaiming that power. In this scenario, you might say, let them string you along. You acknowledge the reality of the situation. Your boss is choosing not to promote you for whatever reason. You accept that you cannot force their hand or change their decision.
Okay, so that's the let them part, accepting the current unfair reality. What does the let me look like here? That's the action part.
This is where you completely reclaim your agency. You ask yourself the most pivotal question in this scenario. Who is ultimately responsible for your career?
It sounds simple, but you're right. In that moment of frustration, it feels like it's the boss's responsibility to recognize your worth.
Mm.
But the answer is me. It's you.
Exactly. You are the CEO of your career. Your boss manages one chapter, maybe, but you write the whole book. So the let me is about fundamentally shifting your focus from the unfairness of the current situation to taking concrete, proactive steps towards finding a better opportunity that aligns with your value and aspirations.
Let me update my resume. Let me start networking. Let me go on some interviews. Take action.
Precisely. Instead of dwelling on the injustice, feeling miserable day after day, maybe complaining endlessly to coworkers or mentally flipping off your boss, Steve, on Zoom energy that changes absolutely nothing in your situation, you channel that energy into taking tangible steps towards a solution that is within your control.
It really highlights the difference between reacting like a frustrated child who isn't getting their way and taking mature adult responsibility for your own future.
It absolutely does. And the source material is quite direct on this point. If you choose to stay in a miserable job feeling stuck and complaining, that's on you. Your reasons for not looking for another job is too much work, I don't have time, what if the next one is worse, or just, well, dumb excuses, as the author puts it. You have immense, often untapped power in this situation, the power to choose a different path. It's time to stop waiting for someone else to change your circumstances and start acting like the person in control of your own career by focusing on what you can do.
So instead of trying to force a change from your boss or the company, you let them continue as they are and redirect your energy entirely to let me create a better opportunity for yourself elsewhere.
That's the strategic power move. And this principle extends even more complexly into one of the areas of life that touches us most deeply: family opinions and dynamics.
Oh, family. The source of so much love, but also so much opinion. Everyone feels entitled to weigh in on your life choices, who you marry, what career you pursue, where you live, what you believe. And often these opinions are expressed with a sense of historical entitlement.
They certainly do. And navigating this can be incredibly challenging,
Sure.
precisely because family relationships are so foundational and cut the deepest. These dynamics have often been in place for decades, forming a deeply interconnected system. When you make a significant life change, say, you get divorced, you decide not to have children, you move across the country, you change careers, or you marry someone outside the family's cultural expectations, it inevitably sends ripples, sometimes turbulent waves, through that established system.
Yeah, it feels like your choices are seen as a direct disruption to their long-held expectations or vision of how your life and thus the family system should be.
That's exactly right. And understanding the system context helps you manage your response rather than feeling like you have to manage their reaction. You cannot stop them from having opinions or from reacting dramatically, whether positively or negatively. So the path forward offered by the theory is, again, let them have their opinions. Even if those opinions are critical, judgmental, hurtful, or even rooted in prejudice, you cannot change their opinions simply by arguing or trying to convince them.
And the let me is choosing how I will respond to that opinion, how I will process it, and what I will do with it, not letting it derail me.
Yes. A really helpful tool integrated here from Yusabil Yu's work is the concept of the frame of reference. This involves making an effort to understand someone else's perspective through the lens of their unique lived experience, their background, their fears, and their beliefs. It doesn't mean you have to agree with their opinion or validate harmful viewpoints, but trying to understand why they might hold that opinion from their frame of reference can sometimes deepen your own understanding, reduce your frustration, and surprisingly, in some cases, can even deepen connection over time.
The anecdote about the author's mother's initial reluctance about her marrying Chris from the East Coast is a perfect illustration of this. It wasn't just disapproval.
It is. From the mother's frame of reference, her concern wasn't necessarily about Chris as a person, but about the distance. Marrying someone who lived so far away felt, to her, like losing her daughter. It was coming from a place of grief and fear of separation and loss, rather than a direct judgment of Chris himself.
And understanding that perspective, years later, shifted the dynamic for the author. It moved from feeling like a judgment and a power struggle to an understanding that they were both experiencing something challenging, just from different perspectives. They were both right from their own frames of reference. This didn't change the author's choice to marry Chris, obviously, but it brought a deeper level of empathy and eventually a stronger connection with her mother.
This frame of reference tool is especially valuable in navigating complex family roles, such as stepping into a step-parent relationship. It's crucial to understand that stepchildren are often grieving the loss of their original family unit and can view the stepparent as a threat, someone competing for their parents' time and affection.
Which is a form of them trying to regain control in a situation where they feel powerless, just like adults do.
Exactly. Just like the adults, they are seeking control. As the adult in this complex system, the theory guides you to say, let them grieve. Let them see you as a threat. Let them feel their emotions, even if they are directed at you. Let them have time alone with their biological parent. And perhaps the hardest one, if they don't have to like you, let them.
Oof. That one really puts the responsibility back on you to manage your own need for acceptance from them. That's tough.
It is tough, but in doing so, it releases the intense pressure to force a relationship or make them like you overnight. This freedom allows you to focus on the let me. Let me respond with grace, patience, and compassion, consistently showing up as a stable, kind adult. This focus on your own behavior creates space for the dynamic to potentially evolve and change over a long period of time without you constantly feeling rejected or battling their feelings.
Ultimately, it's about giving your family the freedom to think whatever they want about your life choices and consciously choosing to focus your energy on living a life that you are proud of, a life that is aligned with your deepest values. Their opinions might soften or even change over time, but that's not your primary focus or responsibility.
Another profoundly draining area where we often surrender our power is in dealing with what the source material aptly describes as adult childlike behavior.
Oh, this one resonates deeply with so many people. It's about navigating the emotional immaturity we sometimes encounter in adults, the sudden outbursts, the manipulative guilt trips, the passive-aggressive silent treatment, feeling like you have to walk on eggshells around someone's moods, or being paralyzed by the fear of disappointing them.
It is incredibly exhausting because you end up dedicating so much energy to constantly managing their emotional state, trying to keep them happy or avoid their negative reactions instead of freely living your own life. And the truth is, emotional maturity is a skill, and many adults haven't fully developed it. When adults are uncomfortable, don't get their way, or don't know how to process a difficult feeling, they often revert to behaviors they might have used as children.
Exactly. And crucially, this behavior stems from their own internal struggles, their inability to process their own emotions or deal with unresolved issues from their past. It is almost never actually about you, even though it feels like it is. You cannot control their automatic emotional response or their ingrained coping mechanisms, but you have absolute control over how you respond to it.
So the solution offered by the theory for this scenario is remarkably direct and liberating. Anytime an adult acts like an 8-year-old child, let them.
Just saying that phrase shifts the dynamic in your head immediately. It reframes it.
It does. It helps you recognize the behavior for what it is, an immature response rooted in their issues, and detaches you from the urge to engage in kind or try to fix it. Take the silent treatment, a classic example of this behavior. The person isn't giving you the silent treatment because you inherently did something wrong. They are doing it because they are avoiding an honest conversation, likely because they don't know how to handle their own feelings of anger, hurt, or disappointment in a mature way. It has everything to do with their inability to communicate and process emotions and very little to do with you.
Right. You are not responsible for fixing their discomfort or their lack of communication skills.
Not at all. The powerful example from the source about the groom who wants to call off a wedding perfectly illustrates the power of emotions, paralyzing adult action. Intellectually, he knows ending the relationship is the right decision for everyone involved. But he is completely paralyzed by the anticipated emotional pain it will cause others, and his own fear of dealing with that fallout and their reaction. You can almost feel the weight of that potential pain just reading about it, showing how potent our own emotions and our fear of others' emotions can be.
And the theory empowers you to step back from feeling responsible for that other person's emotional reaction.
Exactly. It allows you to respond with compassion for their struggle and potential pain, but crucially, to set and hold your boundaries and stop managing their emotions or letting their fear or discomfort dictate your own necessary choices. You can't control whether or not someone else feels anxious or angry or disappointed, but you can always control what you think, do, and say in response. This means being able to stand firm on your boundaries or make difficult but necessary decisions even when you know it will cause them pain, while still offering support for them to face their feelings.
It's about allowing them to own their emotional response while you own yours and your actions, creating that separation.
Precisely. Another area where we commonly give away our power, often subtly and continuously, is through chronic comparison.
Oh, comparison. The ultimate thief of joy and energy. We spend so much time scrolling through social media, looking around at others, and comparing ourselves, our looks, our talents, our career success, our relationships, our homes. It's endless.
And it inevitably leaves us feeling like life is unfair, feeling stuck, feeling behind, frustrated, and like we're just not good enough. It's a direct pipeline to procrastination and perfectionism, because if you convince yourself you can't measure up to the person you're comparing yourself to, why even bother starting?
And the fundamental truth is, there will always be someone who seems luckier than you, or further along, or who has something you desperately want. Comparison is a natural human tendency, but when it consumes you, it is profoundly destructive to your confidence and motivation. And you absolutely, positively cannot control other people's success or what they possess.
So the solution offered is, once again, rooted in let them. Let them have their success. Let them beat you to the punch. Let them do it smarter or faster or look cooler doing it. And the crucial let me in this context is, let me stop this exhausting and pointless act of self-torture.
And the theory suggests reframing comparison, completely seeing it as a teacher, not a tormentor. That's a big shift.
Yes, this is where the power pivot happens. Instead of viewing someone else's success as a personal indictment of your own shortcomings, see it as evidence of what is possible. If they can achieve that, if they can build that, if they can create that, maybe you can too. It's about consciously flipping that jealousy or envy into inspiration. See the possibilities for your own life reflected back in their examples rather than seeing only your own perceived lack.
The author's personal story about her fear of posting on social media for 2 years is such a powerful example of how comparison and fear of judgment can completely paralyze action. 2 years.
It really highlights how insidious it can be. She knew intellectually that she needed to be visible online to build her business, but the fear of what people she knew, friends, family would think, judging her, comparing her to others online, completely stopped her cold for a very long time.
And the anecdote about her friend Molly, the interior designer, who was infuriated by a less experienced person achieving success on social media, is another perfect illustration, right?
Yes. Molly's intense anger and jealousy weren't truly about the other designer. They were about Molly herself. Her strong reaction revealed her own inaction and avoidance. She had known for years that social media marketing was important for her business, but hadn't committed to it. The irritating, successful person was her greatest teacher because they forced her to look in the mirror and confront her own procrastination and fear.
It sounds similar to the story about the friend's huge house renovation that triggered intense jealousy in the author, which ultimately showed her where she felt she had let herself down by not prioritizing her own career and finances earlier in her life. The jealousy, though painful, became a catalyst for her to take action on her own goals.
Exactly. Envy and comparison, when viewed through the lens of let them and let me, can actually highlight precisely where you are avoiding doing the necessary work on your own life. So the ultimate conclusion here is simple but challenging. Let them think negative thoughts about you. Let them have whatever success they achieve, and let me focus my energy entirely on aligning my thoughts and actions with my own values, doing the work that makes myself proud. Ultimately, your opinion of yourself is the only one that truly matters.
This brings us to another area of life that changes dramatically and presents new challenges as we move through adulthood. Friendship.
Adult friendship, sometimes called the Great Scattering. Unlike childhood or college, where proximity and shared experiences naturally create friendships, as adults, lives diverge, people move, schedules get packed, and finding and maintaining close connections requires conscious effort. Expecting adult friendship to just happen spontaneously like it did when you were younger, expecting others to always initiate, expecting constant inclusion in plans, expecting immediate text responses often leads to feelings of disconnection, isolation, and being left out.
It really does. And building truly close bonds takes significant time and shared experience. Research suggests it can take over 200 hours of interaction to form a close friendship. That's a lot of time.
It's a real investment.
Mhm.
And the truth is, sometimes adult friendships naturally fade due to shifts in what the source identifies as the 3 pillars of friendship: proximity, timing, and energy. People's careers change, family situations evolve, health issues arise, and sometimes friendships just naturally drift apart, often impersonally, not because anyone did anything wrong.
And that can feel incredibly hurtful, like a personal rejection, even if it's just a natural divergence of life paths.
It can. But the theory offers a way to navigate this pain and uncertainty. You can say, let them go when friendships naturally fade, except that not all friendships are meant to last forever, and that sometimes, due to changes in life circumstances, the pillars, the connection just isn't as strong. Look at the facts. Have you drifted geographically? Are your schedules completely incompatible? Does the energy feel consistently one-sided?
But what if you apply let them and look around and realize that accepting the natural fading of friendships means you suddenly don't have many close friends left, or maybe feel quite isolated? What then?
That's precisely where the let me becomes incredibly powerful and necessary. If let them reveals a lack of connection in your life, the realization you must embrace is that friendship is not something that happens to you. It is something you actively create.
The author's own experience of moving to a new town at age 54 and feeling profoundly lonely is a perfect illustration of this. Even she fell into the trap.
It is. Despite all her knowledge, she initially fell into the trap of expecting friendship to just organically appear in her new community.
Yeah.
She forgot her own wisdom, the give it a year rule she'd learned from her daughter's college experience. Her daughter had to consistently put herself out there, initiating connections for a full year before she found her core group of friends.
And the author describes spending her first year in the new town feeling miserable, listening to sad music, complaining to her husband, and not actively putting herself out there at all. She was passively waiting for friendship to happen to her.
Until she made the conscious decision to apply her own principles and embrace what she calls the habit of going first.
Ah, yes, going first. Let me be the first to introduce myself. Let me ask if I can join you. Let me share my phone number. Let me send the first text. Let me extend the invitation. Taking the initiative.
It felt awkward, vulnerable, and sometimes led to rejection or awkward silences. But those small acts of going first started building social scaffolding, learning names at the gym, recognizing faces at the coffee shop, feeling slightly more connected to her community.
And significantly, it led to meeting people who became genuine friends, like knocking on her neighbor Mia's door, which led to a regular walking buddy, or saying hello to strangers, which led to meeting Gregory and Jordan at the coffee shop. And eventually David, who lived just a mile away but became a close friend and almost like family after that initial hello. It's amazing what can come from a simple hello.
It's about taking personal responsibility for cultivating the connections you desire, rather than waiting passively for others to provide them. Loneliness is a very real pain point for many adults, but it's not a permanent state, and often the biggest barrier is our own reluctance or fear of initiating contact. Awkward moments are temporary and definitely preferable to prolonged loneliness.
So the strategy is to give it a year, commit to going first, and focus your energy on let me create the community and friendships you want. Be proactive.
Absolutely. It requires consistent effort, but the results are within your control. Moving from personal relationships to influencing those around us, the theory also provides a powerful framework for inspiring change in others without resorting to counterproductive pressure or nagging.
Yes, this is something many of us struggle with, especially with loved ones. You want them to change a habit, maybe eat healthier, quit smoking, manage their finances better, and your instinct is often to pressure, judge, or nag them into doing what you think is best.
And as we discussed earlier, that usually backfires spectacularly. Human beings have that hardwired need for control. When you try to pressure or force someone to change, you trigger their autonomy and their need to resist external control. As Dr. Sherrod explains, this creates a battle, a gridlock, where they dig in their heels and resist simply because they feel pressured.
Like the common example of a wife frustrated by her husband's unhealthy habits. Her underlying anxiety or fear about his health makes her feel out of control of his well-being. So she attempts to control him through nagging, which only makes him more resistant and stubborn. It's a vicious cycle.
Exactly. Pressure doesn't inspire intrinsic motivation. It creates conflict and resentment. And fundamental change, changing ingrained habits or beliefs, is inherently hard and often involves facing discomfort or pain. You simply cannot force someone to do something difficult they are not ready or willing to do.
So the power isn't in pressure, but in influence. How does that work?
Yes. The core principle here is let them make their own choices. You cannot override their feelings, their desires, or their readiness level. Your power lies in your influence by leveraging concepts like social contagion, the fact that behavior, especially positive behavior, can be contagious.
So model the behavior you want to see and make it look appealing. Lead by example, essentially.
Precisely. Think about that coworker who takes a refreshing walk during their lunch break every day. They're not lecturing you about the benefits of walking. They're just doing it, coming back looking more relaxed and energized. Seeing their positive behavior day after day subconsciously influences those around them. It makes the idea of taking a walk start to seem appealing, maybe even like your idea.
You're planting a seed through your own actions and the results you embody. Makes sense.
Exactly. And the source introduces a practical tool for this called the ABC loop, which combines principles from motivational psychology and behavioral science.
The ABC loop. Okay, what are A, B, and C?
A stands for apologize for any pressure, nagging, or judgment you've previously put on them. Then, ask your open-ended questions. This utilizes techniques from motivational interviewing, recommended by experts like Dr. K, which are used in clinical settings to help people explore their own reasons for change. The goal isn't for them to tell you the absolute truth or what you want to hear, but to get them talking about their situation, their feelings, and their desires. This process helps create an internal discomfort or disconnect for them between what they say they want or value and their current behavior.
Ah, okay. So you're not telling them what to do. You're helping them articulate their own thoughts and motivations, creating that internal tension that sparks change. Let them talk and let me listen.
That's it. You're facilitating their self-discovery, which is the only true source of sustainable change. Step B is back off and observe their behavior. You've planted the seed and opened the conversation. Now you must give them space to process it. Stop the pressuring. Continue modeling the desired behavior yourself, making it look positive and attainable.
You're demonstrating the possibility, keeping the door open?
Yes. And step C is celebrate progress. When they take a step, no matter how small, acknowledge and celebrate it. And crucially, help them link the hard behavior to a positive feeling or pleasure. The example given is a friend who celebrates her husband after his workout with compliments, hugs, and admiration, connecting the physical effort to positive emotional reinforcement. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and repeat behaviors associated with it.
So let them make their choices and own their current state, removing the counterproductive gridlock of pressure, and let me use influence and the ABC loop to activate their intrinsic motivation, making the change feel like their idea and their achievement.
It's a far more respectful, effective, and compassionate way to inspire positive change in others. And this framework extends to one of the most heartbreaking situations we face, trying to help someone who is seriously struggling.
Oh, the instinct is powerful, isn't it? You want to rescue them from their pain, whether they're dealing with addiction, significant mental health issues, deep grief, or overwhelming self-doubt. You want to jump in, solve it for them, make the pain go away.
That rescuer instinct comes from a place of deep love and care, of course. But the difficult truth, emphasized by experts like Dr. Waldinger and Dr. Marquez, is that you cannot want someone's recovery or healing more than they want it for themselves. And paradoxically, attempting to rescue someone from the natural consequences of their struggle while feeling helpful in the moment often enables avoidance. It prevents them from developing their own coping mechanisms and strength, and can actually make their anxiety or core issues worse in the long run.
You're preventing them from hitting a necessary rock bottom, which can sometimes be the catalyst that provides the necessary motivation, that internal resolve to change. That feels harsh, but maybe necessary sometimes.
Exactly. Dr. Waldinger advises that we must let people learn from life. This can sound incredibly harsh, accepting that someone you love might face difficult, painful consequences like losing a job, damaging a relationship, or even facing legal trouble. But sometimes these consequences are the crucial part of the motivational circuitry needed to spur them into action when nothing else has worked.
The author's anecdote about her daughter's anxiety and allowing her to sleep in the parents' room is a powerful illustration of how rescuing, even with the very best intentions, enabled avoidance and actually exacerbated the problem over years.
It highlights how allowing avoidance of anxiety by letting her daughter sleep in their room seemed like a kind, supportive act, but it inadvertently taught her to run from her feelings. Years later in therapy, the truth emerged. The only way to build resilience and reduce anxiety is by facing fears. The incredibly difficult "let me" for the parents was setting a boundary, stopping the rescuing behavior, and consistently, lovingly walking their daughter back to her own room every single night, even when it felt like they were being monstrous parents due to her tears and distress.
That must have been agonizing. But it was about allowing her the space and necessity to face her own struggle and build her own strength, not doing it for her.
It is. And this principle extends to difficult situations, like providing financial support for struggling adult children. Sometimes the most loving, albeit painful act is to say, let them struggle. Let them violate the terms of your support, and then let me cut them off financially. The source material acknowledges how cruel this feels, but emphasizes that sometimes it's the necessary wake-up call when everything else has failed to motivate them. It also points out that adult children's frustration with parental opinions is often directly linked to their financial dependence.
It underscores the point that true support isn't solving the problem for them or shielding them from consequences.
Exactly. Contrast the concept of rescuing, with genuine supporting, as seen in the author's experience with postpartum depression. Her friends and family didn't solve her depression for her. They didn't remove the underlying issue. What they did was create a supportive environment for her to do her own healing work. They helped with practical tasks like cleaning, kept her company, gently encouraged her to get out of the house when she was ready. They didn't enable avoidance. They created space, offered practical help, and most importantly, showed that they believed in her capacity to get better. Let them borrow their belief from you.
So supporting is standing by their side, holding a light, believing in their innate ability to navigate their own challenges, and giving them the space and tools they need to do the hard work themselves. Big difference.
That's it. It's empowering them by allowing them to own their struggle and their path forward. This brings us to perhaps one of the most universally challenging and often painful areas of life, finding and keeping love.
Ugh, modern dating. It feels incredibly difficult for so many people. The apps, the endless swiping, the ghosting, the mixed signals, the constant comparison to others online. It's easy to feel discouraged, insecure, and like you're doing something wrong.
And in that vulnerable state, it's easy to fall into the trap of chasing inconsistent people, making excuses for their confusing behavior, and giving away your power by agonizing over why they aren't acting the way you want them to or the way you think they should.
The truth is, it takes real bravery to be authentic in the dating world and to see situations clearly for what they are. As the saying goes, if someone genuinely likes you and is interested, you'll know it because their actions will be clear. If they're sending mixed signals and leaving you confused, that is the signal they're sending. Texting is easy. Making concrete plans and showing up consistently demonstrates genuine interest.
And importantly, you are building your life. A partner is meant to be someone who joins and shares the incredible life you are creating, not someone who becomes the entire focus or purpose of it. You need to be intentional about who you let into that life. Saying no to the wrong people is actually the fastest way to make space for the right person.
And the let them theory provides a much-needed dose of brutal honesty in the dating world. Doesn't pull punches.
It does. It tells you to say, let them not text you back. Let them send mixed signals. Let them confuse you. Let their behavior be the undeniable, clear message they are sending. You are not a priority to me right now.
And let me is about accepting that truth. Let me see them for who they are based on their actions. Let me accept the truth in their behavior. And crucially, let me stop chasing or trying to change them.
That acceptance is key. And once you are in a relationship, the theory offers a similar, sometimes uncomfortable truth. Assume your partner won't change. People only do what they feel like doing. Constantly wishing or expecting your partner to be fundamentally different, to be more like you in their habits, communication style, or interests, is a direct path to resentment.
And that resentment builds walls. You have to be honest with yourself. Is your frustration just about wanting them to be more like you? Or is there a fundamental need of yours that isn't being met because of this difference? It's a crucial distinction.
Exactly. Let them be who they are. Accept them, flaws and all. You can certainly try influencing them using methods like the ABC loop, creating space for potential change, but ultimately you must accept that they may not change on that fundamental issue. And this is where the let me in a committed relationship becomes a conscious choice. Is this difference or behavior a deal breaker for you?
The source material puts it quite directly. You have to choose to end your bitching or end the relationship. Pretty blunt.
It's blunt, but it highlights the core choice. If you choose to stay, you make the commitment to stop complaining about the things you've accepted they won't change, and accept them exactly as they are. The author uses her own marriage as an example, acknowledging that her own ADHD habits can drive her husband crazy sometimes, and she accepts that about herself and accepts that dynamic within their relationship.
And sometimes, even with mutual love and effort, compatibility issues are simply too significant. The Gottman's research, which studies relationships, suggests that around 69% of relationship problems are fundamentally unresolved or perpetual issues that couples simply learn to manage, not solve.
That's a really high percentage. And sometimes those perpetual issues highlight a fundamental incompatibility. Maybe you want different things from life or have core value differences that cannot be reconciled. In those cases, even if you love each other, the relationship may not work in the long run. This realization can lead to heartbreak, regardless of the choice you make leaving the relationship or staying and giving up a dream or vision you had for the future. Your partner is not changing. Let them. And now, let me make a choice about what is right for me.
That choice, even when it's a necessary one for your well-being, can often lead to perhaps the most universally painful human experience: heartbreak?
Oh, heartbreak is devastating. It feels like physical pain, makes you question your worth, and often leads to an intense desire to reach out to the person, which, sadly, is the very thing that hinders healing.
The truth is, using let them doesn't magically erase the pain of heartbreak. It's a deep grief. And research suggests that processing it takes time, often at least 3 months, before you start to feel some emotional regulation return. Sadness is a healthy and necessary response to loss.
And contact with the person who broke your heart, even just seeing their social media, reactivates the old neural pathways and emotional patterns in your brain, setting back the healing process significantly. That's why the therapist's strict rule of 30 days of absolute no contact is so often recommended and crucial. During this time, the fear of being alone forever can also feel incredibly overwhelming and real.
So, the let me part of navigating heartbreak is about consciously allowing yourself to feel the pain and taking deliberate steps to move through it, rather than trying to avoid it or fix the other person. It's about tending to yourself.
Yes, it's let me grieve, let me cry, let me talk about it with supportive friends or a therapist, let me resist the urge to reach out, let me be in a state of sadness or even mild depression for a necessary period. Allow the healthy processing of the loss. And when you're ready, the source material offers research-backed recommendations for actively moving forward.
Like enforcing that strict 30-day no contact rule, which is non-negotiable, that seems critical.
Exactly. Get support, lean on trusted friends and family. Consider therapy. Journaling can be incredibly therapeutic for processing complex emotions. And importantly, actively fill your calendar with activities.
I can see how that helps.
Hmm.
Distraction isn't a permanent solution, but in the acute phase of intense heartbreak, keeping your mind engaged and preventing yourself from endlessly dwelling is crucial for survival and initial healing.
Absolutely. Pick a challenging project for yourself. Maybe train for a race, take a difficult class, plan a solo trip, learn a new skill. Do something concrete that you will be proud of accomplishing. Focus that energy that was previously directed outwards onto building something meaningful for yourself.
And finally, there's that really powerful question that author suggests asking yourself during this time. How would I spend this time if I knew the love of my life was just around the corner and this breakup was simply clearing the path for them to enter my life?
That question is transformative, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It shifts your focus from the pain of the past and the current loss to the possibility of the future. It signals a belief that you will find love again and encourages you to make the absolute most of your present time as a single person, seeing it as a period of preparation and growth rather than just an empty space before the next relationship.
It feels like this entire theory across all these different applications, stress, work, family, friends, love, heartbreak, ultimately circles back to one core foundational relationship.
It absolutely does. While we've explored how to apply let them and let me to our interactions with others, friends, family members, partners, colleagues, the relationship that underpins all of those connections and makes them possible in a healthy, balanced way is the relationship you have with yourself.
That core truth, let them be them so you can finally let me be me. That really sums it up.
That phrase encapsulates the ultimate freedom and goal of the theory. The ability to have incredible, authentic, balanced relationships with others, relationships that are truly sources of joy, meaning, and connection, is fundamentally built on the foundation of how you treat yourself.
It makes sense. If you're constantly abandoning your own needs or boundaries to manage others, you're not showing up authentically, and you're not respecting yourself. How can you have healthy relationships then?
Exactly. Are you respecting your own boundaries in the face of others' demands or opinions? Are you showing yourself the same compassion and kindness you would offer a struggling friend? Are you pursuing your own dreams, passions, and goals without waiting for anyone else's approval or permission?
You really don't need anyone else to tell you it's okay to be happy, or to change careers, or to travel, or to create art, or to end a draining relationship, or to set boundaries with family.
You don't. The only permission slip you ever truly need is your own. We spend so much time and energy waiting for external validation for others to give us love, acceptance, approval, permission. But the theory shows us that it all starts with cultivating that love, acceptance, approval, and permission within yourself.
The let them theory isn't just a guide for dealing with other people's frustrating or confusing behavior. It's a guide for fundamentally reshaping your relationship with yourself, treating yourself with the same love, respect, and kindness you deserve. Let them be who they are, yes, but more importantly, let yourself finally be who you truly are.
Now consider the cost of not using this theory. Think about life as if you are standing beneath a vast sky. You have absolutely no control over the weather, the clouds, the rainstorms, the sunshine, the wind. It's going to do what it's going to do, completely independent of your desires or efforts.
And we spend so much of our lives standing there, wishing the clouds would go away, resisting the rain, desperately wanting endless sunshine. It's futile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is the immense cost of not using Let Them. All that wasted energy, that precious time spent resisting the reality of what is happening, wanting things you simply cannot control, wishing lines would move faster, wishing people would text you back, wishing your boss would recognize your worth, wishing your family would support you unconditionally, wishing friends would always include you.
Imagine where that energy could go instead. What incredible things could you build, create, or experience if you weren't drained by constantly fighting against the uncontrollable? Who could you become if you weren't held back by fear of judgment or disappointment?
And think about the cost of not using Let Me. All the missed opportunities because you were afraid of introducing yourself, afraid of pursuing that challenging career, afraid of creating that piece of art, afraid of posting your work online, afraid of traveling alone, afraid of being honest about what you want, afraid of daring to love or set boundaries.
That price feels too high. It feels like you're letting your life pass you by, defined by what others do or think, rather than by your own intentional choices.
And while we often make excuses for why others seem to have it easier, why they're luckier, more attractive, or had an easier life, the source is quite pointed. If you are not where you want to be in life, it's all your fault.
Which, taken out of context, sounds harsh, but it's framed in the theory as a profound liberation.
Precisely. It's not about blame in a shaming sense. It's about reclaiming your agency. It's incredibly liberating to truly internalize that other people cannot affect you unless you consciously let them. It is liberating to be unbothered by their judgment, their criticism, their lack of approval, or even their success.
Because ultimately, you are in complete control of what you think, what you say, and what you do. You get to choose where you invest your time, your energy, and your focus.
Reclaiming your power means reclaiming responsibility for your life, accepting what is not in your control, and then making immense demands of yourself, focusing laser-like on the things you can control: your effort, your learning, your courage, your kindness, your boundaries.
It certainly won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight. It requires conscious practice, right?
Mhm.
Like building a muscle.
Absolutely. But the moment you truly start taking your power back by focusing on Let Me, the goals you have for yourself, building that career, finding that partner, cultivating those friendships, improving your health, finding peace, become not matters of luck or circumstance, but simply a matter of time.
Because they are now entirely within your control.
Exactly.
So consider this moment. You're welcome. Welcome to your Let Me era.
Let me get started on that project I've been delaying. Let me take a risk and apply for that job. Let me be honest about what I need and want. Let me finally commit to getting in shape.
Let me stop chasing people who aren't choosing me back. Let me consciously, intentionally, and bravely create a life I am truly proud of, regardless of what anyone else thinks or does.
It's all within your power. So to bring it all together, the Let Them theory is a transformative framework rooted in radical acceptance. It begins with Let Them, the deliberate act of releasing your need to control or be bothered by what you cannot change about other people's actions, thoughts, or feelings. This is the crucial step that frees you from the exhausting and unproductive struggle against the external world.
And by creating that space and releasing that struggle, you reclaim immense personal power by intentionally shifting your entire focus and energy to Let Me, directing it towards what you can control. Your own internal state, your responses, your thoughts, and your purposeful actions.
We've explored how applying this simple but powerful principle can dramatically impact areas like managing daily stress, navigating the complexities of family dynamics, improving your situation at work, overcoming corrosive comparison, building meaningful adult friendships, influencing others more effectively and compassionately, and supporting both yourself and loved ones through their struggles.
And it offers profound wisdom and practical tools for navigating the challenges of finding and keeping love, and perhaps most tenderly, for moving through the deep pain of heartbreak, all by bringing the focus back to your own intentional choices and how you choose to respond to life.
The ultimate freedom offered by this theory lies in recognizing that no matter what storms gather in the sky above you, no matter what others say or do, you retain the fundamental power to decide how you will respond to it all. Your power resides in your conscious, deliberate choices, moment by moment.
So as we conclude this deep dive, here's that thought to carry with you. Take a moment to consider this. What specific piece of your own life have you been neglecting, putting on hold, or struggling with, perhaps waiting for someone else to change, or for circumstances to align perfectly before you finally give yourself permission to step fully and bravely into your let me era?
The time is now to reclaim that power.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.